Hello everyone, myself Rituraj from Bernice Law Journal, and today we have a special guest, Mr. Mahesh Jagre sir. He is retired Principal Secretary of Maharashtra. Before starting your lecture, sir, please tell us something about yourself, about your background.
Rituraj, I welcome you all, and I really appreciate that you have taken this initiative. And since everything is locked down, you have made this opportunity available to all your colleagues and friends. I really appreciate your efforts. Uh, I've worked in government for 34 years, and before that, I was a part of a multinational company before joining the public service. And in 2018, I retired as Principal Secretary to Government of Maharashtra. That's my brief background. I have held the post of, like, say, Principal Secretaries and Municipal Commissioner Pune and Food and FDA Commissioner, and there are too many posts. So that's my brief background. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Hello, sir. Now please start. We can move further for the lecture on the health of democracy.
But whenever there is breakdown of audio or video, please call me on my mobile so that I should, I should continue to.
No, sir. Fine.
You just intervene and just let me know whether I'm audible or I'm also visible. So let me know once in a while.
You're audible.
Okay, friends, the topic today that we have decided between me and Rituraj is the health of the democracy. And since all of you must be wondering what democracy is, a too preliminary topic. Everybody talks about democracy, and then this is not a very in thing to talk about democracy because it's there in the textbook and it is in existence for such a long time. And we did not discuss this thing, and we should be discussing something very current topics like COVID or post-COVID economy and all those things. So you may be wondering why we have decided this topic. This is number one. But before that, let me give a brief in just half a minute that we are passing through a very different timeline, and we had never expected that this COVID or the coronavirus can disrupt the entire planet. So it is like a unknown thing for humanity that such instances can happen, and that also especially in the 21st century. Earlier it used to happen, but then we were not prepared. The science was not as developed, or we did not have the kind of medical progress. But in spite of all this, what has happened for last 200, 250 years, and in spite of the globalized institutions, international institutions, the world has come to a standstill. It's not only killing the people, this disease, but it has also disrupted the entire economy of the planet. And that is going to be the major thing. And on that background, we must also discuss about like what is happening in the administrative systems of the world, administrative system of the countries. Having said that, let us understand why we need to check health of democracy. We check our health if our temperature, if fever is right, if our blood sugar is right, and of course all other parameters like our basic metabolic rate is right, then we are healthy. But if you do not check the health parameters, then probably sometime we get the disease and then we suffer, and then the medicine is delayed and the suffering is more. We never take such a kind of such kind of a stand for many other things, including our economy. We never talk about health of our economy. We never talk about health of government, whether the government is in right health or not. We never talk about what social society is, in what shape society is today. We never talk about society, and basically we never talk about what health is of democracy. Let me clear one thing. I am not going to tell you anything. I'm just going to raise some kind of pertinent issues about health of democracy, and I will leave you with the thought and leave a lot of material to think over it and come out your own judgments about health of democracy. Uh, Today there is lot of information. In fact, I call it as a assault of information on humanity. It's so much information, and we keep on imbibing, we keep on digesting, taking inside the information, but we leave very small time for thinking about what is there uh, that we need to do concurrently and also in the future. So, under the assault of information, our thinking gets stunted sometime. Through my lectures, I never impart any information. I never give any information. I simply try to trigger debate. I simply try to trigger thinking and especially creative thinking. And from that perspective, I'll restrict myself to very few points and we'll have a lot of discussion or debate over what I'm saying at the end of the session if time permits. Or we can have next session just for the discussion. To begin with, democracy, there is no perfect definition of democracy that is accepted by everyone. Normally, definitions are accepted by everyone, but here the definitions are taken in different contexts, in different time frame, and therefore the definition of democracy changes. So we do not have reference point of what democracy is there. Just like reference point, our temperature has to be 38.6 degrees Celsius, or metabolic basal metabolic rate should be, or BMI should be so much, or blood sugar should be so much, and we are healthy. So for democracy, what democracy should be, there is no reference point because it differs. But let's take a quick look at the democracy. Democracy is not too old. It started just around 2,528 years ago in Athens, first exponent of democracy, when the Clisthenes in Athens, he took over from one one aristocrat who was put up there by Sparta, and he took over the reins of administration from him, and he started democracy. And now we are in the 2528th year of beginning of democracy. So that is the first point of democracy. And basically, democracy that time, of course, there were too many philosophers that time in Greek, and especially Aristotle, contemporary of Clisthenes, he defined democracy. And that was the first definition given of democracy. Of course, Aristotle was against the democracy. He was against the principle of democracy. But till today, the definition given by Aristotle is probably the perfect and best definition according to me. Because his definition is very short and it sums up everything. According to Aristotle, democracy is the rule of the majority and those who are weak. That is the democracy. That's all. It's all that simple. Those people who are in majority and weak. And normally, most of the people in majority, they are weak. And even today also, if you go by the number of people who are having their per capita income subnormal compared to the average per capita income, today also economically weak people are more on this planet than the economically well-to-do people. So his definition stands here today also. Of course, the Athenian democracy did not last long. There are various reasons. I'm not going to go into that also. Second, the kickstart of democracy came in 1215 when Magna Carta, the King of England, he gave some rights to barons that they will not be illegally detained, there will be swift justice. So we normally take the students of the political science, they take that Magna Carta is the mother of democracy, but no. From that perspective, democracy, it was not democracy per se because it gave king's right to barons, minister, and not to the people. So, but we normally take that Magna Carta is also the mother of democracy. And probably, I think it is now 805th year of Magna Carta's democracy. Then came the 1688 Glorious Revolution. That is also said to be the precursor of our current democracies. That also happened in England, and some powers were given to Parliament. And that was the first thing that really migrated from king to the people through parliament. Then, of course, later the American Constitution is also is supposed to be one of those factors to contribute international democratic movement. In this context, I would recollect the Gettysburg Address of Abraham Lincoln, and who summarized that democracy is the kind of system that is by the people, for the people, and of the people. So today, even if you want to refer, that is probably the best reference all across the world, that democracy means it is of the people, by the people, and for the people, and that stands today. Of course, Gettysburg Address was too short, 271 words, but still one of the most powerful addresses that Abraham Lincoln, he gave this address after the civil revolution that happened in USA. So this is the basic of the background of democracies. Now, in this 20th century, what happened? In fact, 20th century is supposed to be the watershed year for democracy. And after the First and Second World War, the world saw a complete divergence from the control system of governments, like from king and from authoritarian rules towards democracy. Today, we have about 57%, 56 to 57% population living in democratic countries. Of course, it is not too, probably we should have been like 100% democratic planet, but which it is not. That 56% or 57% people living in democracy, whether it is also healthy democracy. And to summarize that, there are too many people who talk about what is the democratic thing and how to measure whether the democratic are functional or not. I will take one reference only, and that is of Economics Intelligence Unit. Every year, they rank the democracies of about 167 countries. Keep on changing that what is the top rank, like either full democracy, flawed democracy, hybrid democracy, and authoritarian rule. These are the four categories they normally they have the parameters. And of course, democracies are this health of democracy, they do it on the basis of whether there are national elections held regularly, whether there is security of voters, and whether there is influence of foreign powers on government, like say a classic case of 2016 election of USA. There was talk that Russia influenced the US elections. And of course, capability of civil servants to implement. These are the 4 or 5 parameters on the basis of which these 4 categories, the countries are categorized into 4 categories. Full democracies, flawed democracies, hybrid democracies, and of course authoritarian rule like China and Russia and all this thing. There are only 22 countries in the world of 167 countries. They are full democracy. It's unfortunate. In fact, the thing which started about 2,528 years ago in Athens, Athenian democracy, till today, all those regimes or countries who have adopted democracy should have been under the full democracy on the basis of parameters that normally we do. Then, like for hybrid democracy, there are some countries and other categories. Where does India stand? We stand about in flawed democracy. USA also stands in flawed democracy. This reason being that probably everything is all right, but maybe press is not, is not all that free. There are certain reasons. But I don't want to take names of any country. We are talking global issue. But there are categories, 4 categories, where large number of such countries have been categorized in the different categories. Especially flawed democracies, there are about 39 countries. These flawed democracies can go towards the full democracies. And unfortunately, where the democracy started in Greek, that is coming under the flawed democracy. It's not in the full democracy. That is a very sorry state of affairs. I am stopping about this particular part of democracy, like where it is there. To sum it up, the democracy which was conceptualized in Athens, that the rule of majority in those are weak. Are we today? Probably not. Then, of course, the rule of the Gettysburg Address of Abraham Lincoln, we say that it is the rule of by the people, of the people, and for the people. We will examine it too after some time. And of course, whether people are in full charge of it or not. I think somebody is his microphone is on. So can you please mute it? Can you please mute it? I would. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Rituraj, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Okay. See, on this background, then we need to take stock of the situations where our democracies are in health. The kind of survey that is conducted every year by Oxford Economics Intelligence Unit does not show that it is in good health. Leave that apart. Democracy, what is the function of democracy? Basically, to make people happy, make them comfortable, and their life to be like similar of all the people. Not that some people are stressed economically, some people are having a lot of wealth. So equality. So these are the parameters of this thing. We will also examine it on that perspective, from that perspective also, whether our democracy is doing justice to everyone, all those who are being governed, and whether there is any change into it. Democracy's health cannot be judged in a very isolated manner, because today democracy, unlike Athenian democracy, or unlike Magna Carta, or unlike Glorious Revolution of 1688, it cannot be visualized in isolation. Democracy has become a matrix of economics, technology, and of course, governance forces. We cannot really isolate democratic institutions from economic institutions, or we cannot isolate now technological progress from the democratic institutions, and of course, the institutions of economics. So this has become a complex. So separately, we really cannot now judge anything. So it has to be judged as a complex matter, and as a matter of complexity. When king was the person who was controlling everything prior to democracy, or any authoritarian ruler was there, then everything he was controlling. He was controlling economics, he was controlling military, army, and of course he was controlling the control over the people. So it was one sphere. He was whole and soul. But that started changing with the first industrial revolution that started in 1776, when the steam engine came in. And with that, with this technology, there was the seeds of capitalism were sown at the time of the first industrial revolution. And the economic sphere started separating from the sphere of king or politics or governance systems of a country. Until then, economics was part of the king. He used to decide what taxes to be levied, how much to be given to the people who collect taxes, and how much is left to the people who produce probably agriculture produce, or could be any produce. So it was one system. But with the first industrial revolution, the economics started, or financialization of the planet started with the first industrial revolution. That is first time. Then, of course, with the second industrial revolution in 1840, from 1840 to 1860, mass production, factories, and then that really changed the face of this planet. And then with the third industrial revolution in 1960, IT and information technology, now we have come to the level of fourth industrial revolution now, and artificial and all these things. But with this, the economic system has also changed. And in that economic system, the emergence of capitalism. During king's time or authoritarian rule, capital was not there. King used to decide how much is to be collected and how much is to be spent on welfare of the people or the infrastructure. That's it. But once the capitalism started growing, it grew, and after the World War II, it became too powerful, and it became too difficult for manage. And simultaneously, all the countries also started taking part with each other as a marketing partners. So simultaneously, there was emergence of capitalism and also the need for countries to come together after World War II to have some kind of system that would facilitate trade across the world, and that's how the Bretton Woods systems came in, and like World Bank and International Monetary Fund, and that really served very well. That also gave fillip to globalization of economy, all those things, and it also gave boost to increase the capitalism. And that was this that probably during after the Bretton Woods system, capitalism spread all across the world. Today, probably capitalism system of economics is the only system that is in existence, that is in power, including China and Russia, although they are not democratic countries, but they reap the fruits of capitalism. So democracy and capitalism are now considered as synonymous. If you have to have democracy, then you have to have capitalism. What happened after this Bretton Woods system? I will not go into the economics, but in 1971, to be precise, 15th August 1951, Nixon virtually, of course, on the advice of Kissinger. That time, Kissinger was not the foreign minister of or state secretary of state of USA, but both of them decided to virtually demolish the Bretton Woods system, and to control a system, economic system of the globe where they will be in power perpetually. And then that really changed the face of the planet, and that also dented the democratic forces. The power of capitalism grew so multifarious and multifold that they started ruling the entire planet because they also gave jobs. And in the name of that, if the money is in the private hands, it can be used more efficiently than the governmental system. So the virtues of capitalism were too many. So they become free, like capital forces, and therefore liberalism started. Liberalism from democracy. So what happened during the last few decades of the 20th century? Capitalism became too strong. In fact, so much so strong that they started encroaching upon the democratic forces. In a way that the companies or the corporations that were created out of this capitalistic gains, they became too powerful. They started designing the policies, they started driving the policies of the government, and then unfortunately, in last 2-3 decades, the democratic power of democracy is consistently going down vis-a-vis power of capitalism. Today, virtually, there is one Nobel laureate. He said that today, this planet is for the top 1% people who are controlling maximum wealth, probably wealth equal to the entire planet's 50% wealth of the people below 50%. So they are too powerful. So those 1% people are controlling the entire planet. So his definition of today is that the governance system of the planet, it includes all the countries, is that It is the system of the 1%, by the 1%, and for the 1%. So we started with the kind of rule of those who are in majority and those who are weak. Then came the rule of by the people, of the people, and for the people. And today it has come to the level of rule of richest 1%, of the 1%, and for the 1%. So this is the kind of slide for democracy. And we normally never question such things. What is happening? We simply take the things as they come. Here, the political system has been completely watered down. If you take a stock of the people like prime ministers and ministers and people's representative all across the world, not that their mental setup has been like diminishing. They're as strong as ever. They're as intelligent as ever. They are as concerned about the people's welfare as ever, but they are subjugated. They are controlled by capitalism. They are not independent anymore. For the policies or for implementation of policies, or for that matter, how the countries or how the world international institutions are to be controlled. These are not controlled by any politician anymore to the extent that they used to control earlier. Not that they are not, they are still controlling, but the rule of capitalism has taken over them. So this is a very serious factor, serious dent on democracy. Now, just to give an example, today, if you have to have some policies for welfare of the people. Now, what is the policy? That there should be equality of income, or the inequality of income should be removed. That is one of the basic parameters of governance and basic parameters of democracy. Now, what is happening? In the name of efficiency of capital, the people, most of the decisions regarding economic prowess is taken by the corporations and imposed upon the governments, and governments are accepted. So much so that today even government are not able to decide anything on some of these parameters. Take for example, how much they are collecting, and whether they are collecting, these larger companies are collecting the amount of wealth or amount of returns that is disproportionate to their share. I will give you one example. Immediately after the Second World War, General Motors and Ford Motors, they started manufacturing vehicles on larger scale, and then of course they did employ large number of employees and provided employment to the workers and people. In fact, after the World War II, there was largest employment that was created in factory sector, secondary sector, manufacturing sector, and that's how this middle class emerged all across the world. So it gave, these companies gave a lot of returns to the larger number of people. It is said that about 54 to 55% of the revenue of Ford's and General Motors used to go to the workers. Now think today, Amazon. How much Amazon is paying today's their workers or their employees? It may be less than 1%, a fraction of 1%. So it is just they're amassing wealth for themselves, one person, or probably their board of directors and some shareholders, but it is not getting spread across their employees. And this is not one example. This is happening Microsoft, this is happening, all you take the name and all the major corporations, but nobody is questioning them that you're amassing wealth so much and still you're not spreading it across through your employees or some other means. No government. Take example of India. We never question that. If Uber comes or Amazon comes, they simply come and then they re-siphon their profits at their headquarters. And it's not just in India, it is all across. So this world has been taken over by capitalism. And this capitalism has got also now its own problems. And the worst problem that we saw was 2008 Lehman Brothers dilemma where this capitalistic system also collapsed to such an extent that today people are scared to invest in new ventures. And in the history of humanity, for the first time, 38% of the incomes of these such large corporations is lying idle, which is they are not deploying because they don't feel that creditors will come back. So the democratic forces or the representatives of the people have failed to address this problem because they were weakened by the capitalism. And this is the main thing, that the democracy is not in good health. Democracy has lost its sheen, democracy has lost its relevance, and the capitalism has cannibalized. It has taken over, it has encroached upon the democratic forces, and it is said that 1% people, like in USA, they were controlling government, and therefore through government the entire 99% population. But today, what is there? The capitalistic person is now sitting as the president. So it is even the government is also run by capitalism, and this is by and large everywhere. So what needs to be done then? We need to again rethink about how to strengthen political system, how to strengthen the political people's representatives and make them in charge, make them thinkers, and make them design the economic system of the planet, so that this kind of system that is one-sided, it is one-sided all across the globe. It is not in favor of the masses, in favor of those handful people who have tested the blood of how to amass large wealth and then remain in economic power. So this has gone exactly against that rule of majority and rule of those who are weak and those who are in majority. So it has gone. We need to now rethink about the health of democracy, and not just that what election system we should have and what needs to be done, what not needs to be done. We have to rethink how to make the political sphere much more powerful, how to make them to change the economic system. Otherwise, the things are going worse day by day. And therefore, you people, young generation, you need not just study what is democracy, what is the definition, how it is functioning, and what is like civics and all these things, or for that matter, like in law, what are the basic principles of democracy, constitutions, and law under that. No, it is much more important to have the background of it, whether it is in health. In one sentence, it is not in health. It is in a very serious condition, and we need to do something to again make the politicians or the people's service more powerful. Last thing, I must say something about this, and we'll throw it open. In democracy, people are in power. But today, whenever we see that, okay, Barack Obama was in power and now Trump is in power, has come to power, these are the things. This word power is blot on democracy. We are not, the world is not electing kings, world is not electing the powers. Something has gone wrong. From Athenian principles to till today, again, we are creating kings. And therefore, since it is the fact, the word power is apt for this, but it itself goes against the democracy. So we are not supposed to elect the powers, and that is another factor of the health of democracy. And from that perspective also, the democracy has not remained healthy. Third aspect, let me tell you one thing, that we elect representatives for the kind of things that we expect to happen in this any country, or for that matter across the globe, that what we need. But over a period of last 30-40 years, we elect people's representatives and they take decisions as per their fancies and whims all over the world. In fact, they should be taking the decision what you want, and therefore they have to be very transparent, before elections and tell that we are going to take decisions like this in such a time frame, and that's it, and we should get elected, and then they can take the decisions. But what is happening? Like once the elected representatives come to their office, they simply take the decisions as per their own understanding, and then this again becomes a system of like authoritarian system. Maybe like in USA, what is happening, or for that matter, any part of the world, it is happening. So this third thing is that the election of representatives doesn't mean that they are given powers, unfettered powers to decide anything and everything. No, the decision has to have within the parameters of what was promised earlier, and from that perspective, otherwise it's a flawed democracy. It becomes very different picture, distorted picture of democracy. So first thing, we need to examine the health of democracy. After examining whether we have to also change, is required to change the democracy, and whether economics has taken over the democratic forces. And third, after getting elected, whether they are performing as the democratic representatives, or they are again going back to like being a king of earlier ages. So from that perspective, I believe that we need to take review what is happening and then charter a new path which will do away with inequality of incomes all across the world, which will also provide opportunities, equal opportunities to everyone, and not weighed in favor of capitalist forces. So these are the things which I leave with you to think over and change. I am not saying that you should absorb whatever I am saying, but I am just seeding a thought that all is not well in democracy. Democracy is not functioning the way it should have been functioning, and something needs to be done, and it is to be done by the generation of your generation or the future generations. I stop it here because it's a very vast topic, and let us discuss it if you have any questions. Otherwise, I think we can end the session. Rituraj.
I think we have lost connection, sir. So anyone here have questions, please ask. Unmute yourself and ask the question.
Does anyone have anyone wants to ask any questions, or like?
Yeah, there is a question from Geet Jetwani. Geet, please ask your question.
Please.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Geet here from Ferguson Law College, Pune.
Yes.
So this can be a bit outrageous question for you, but sir, there is so much inequality happening in our country right now, like politically, socially. So one side we are saying that we have the largest democracy in the world, and on the other hand, if someone speaks against Modi government particularly, then he just gets arrested under certain laws without any kind of proper investigation. Like right now we rank 83rd in the world in terms of democracy. So even the law like UAPA, if we consider, it's just too discriminatory from the people's perspective, because a normal citizen have no right to defend themselves against the same law. Now the question from my side is that in this type of environment, if students want to contribute in any type of social work, you can say helping out civil servants in some or other way on his part while studying, so what are the advice you will give to students like us?
Geet, it's not an outrageous question. It's like, okay, young minds think they are, and they should think. And I'm good. I'm happy that you're thinking. But let's not, bring down it to a level which is not, it's a very small. Let's make it very large level. And since you're from law college, and you people have more responsibility to shoulder. During the freedom struggle movement, there were many lawyers who were at the forefront, and that's how we got the freedom. So every time the context changes, and I want the law students to be the torch bearer for making democracy healthy again. Now, what you're saying is that voice is not being heard and all these things. It's a very small thing. It has to be a mass thing to strengthen democracy. Now, probably then, if the democracy is not in health by 1% or 2%, no, it's not that. It's a very larger issue. In fact, it's a global issue. Globally, this is happening. And people's representatives, they themselves are not free of capitalism. We have to really make them free of capitalism. And then, as I said, my last parameter was that whether the people's representative behave the way they are supposed to be behaving post-election as people's representative, that needs to be done as a system. Now, if you're saying that the voice is not heard, a single voice will not be heard, voices of few people will not be heard, this has to be, or if the freedom struggle movement had been started by few people and ended there, we would never have got the independence. It has to be a mass movement, and there has to be somebody awakening. Nowadays, we never discuss, come together and talk all about things. In fact, India could be world leader for, since we are the largest democracy, we can start debate about how to gain, magnify the democratic forces vis-a-vis other dens. In fact, Yanis Varoufakis, the Greek, ex-Greek foreign finance minister, and of course, he is an economist. He has started one movement, probably already on GM25, that how to strengthen democracy once again. So if a small country, somebody movement is getting started, we are 135 crores of people, 136 crores of people. Why not to take leadership in such a matter, and how long we can remain this is happening in the world, so let it happen here also. So it's a good question, but then you have to come together, think what is right, and start the movement.
So what can be the first step we can take? Because
first thing is that India should, and people like you, that what is the health of democracy today in the world? You must really come to the level that this is the disease. What the doctor does, he checks the parameters of a person if he's sick, and then the diagnosis is there. Now, the diagnosis of democracy is not in good health. So then the debate will start. What is democracy? What is the right for the masses? Try to understand, right for the masses. Need not be for, and whether some people have captured the entire field of democracy for their personal use, capitalist. And there are many such factors. So you have to tell the people, you have to start the movement across the world. It is not this party or that party or this individual, that individual, but basically democracy principles are being flawed over a period of time. This you have to tell the people in so many words, and start the movement and start the reforming. Then I think we will find the way.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone else?
So if
Hello.
anybody has any question, please ask.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, sir, myself Pranal Mulla. Hello.
Yes, please. I hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, sir. Sir, we have very vital institutions in our country, such as Reserve Bank of India, CBI, IB, RAW, Supreme Court, and we can see that these institutions are being interrupted or being partial. So how is it possible in democracy to keep it safe or impartial or unbiased?
See, as I said earlier, in democracy, people have to have power, and not those who get elected, they have power. So this is the basic thing. Democracy, we don't elect power. Democracy, people get the power. Unfortunately, last 30-40 years, the power, people are getting power. The elected representatives getting power, and therefore, once you get power, then you start overpowering the institutions. Not just in any country. Even if you think about the international institutions, think about WTO. Do you hear WTO these days, what it is doing? World Trade Organization? Nothing. In fact, it was created to arbitrate between different countries when there is a trade dispute. Today, China is fighting with the USA. WTO is not doing anything. That means these institutions are weakened. Similarly, in India, or for that matter, any other country, national institutions' neutrality is maintained when the power is with the people. The power migrates from the people to the people's representative. That's not democracy. So we need to again go back to bring back the original meaning of democracy. And therefore, like RBI and then like CBI, or for that matter, anything, then all the governments, those who are in power, they try to overpower such institution. So therefore, basic thing is that again the rule of democracy has to be brought back.
Do someone have any question? Please ask.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, actually, the concept
Can
of
you
democracy.
identify yourself, please?
Sir, myself Akshay Chaudhary from Noida,
Yeah, okay.
a law
Okay.
student.
Okay.
Sir, my question is, we are moving towards elite democracy, and there is a single party, or everywhere a single group dominates most of the thing. So why don't a concept of democracy is going toward not going toward participation of people? Because as we can see, no participation is coming up, only the influences of single dominating parties. For Indian concept also, there are only nationalist two parties, otherwise there is no such things. We should have other options to promote the democracy, or otherwise to keep our things. So how can we overcome these problems, sir?
So these are the practical issues. In fact, our democracy, especially Indian democracy, allows everyone to participate in democratic process. It's not nobody is precluded or nobody is stopped from getting participation in this thing. But then it's always that the larger force that gets selected. Now let me give you a very small example. I don't know, since you are from Noida, have you heard Shivaji Maharaj, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj? Probably must have heard. Haven't you heard?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So he saw that the conditions in Maharashtra that time were not good, and therefore he wanted to establish rule of the people, and therefore he was a king. Still, he did that. But those who are coming from across the border, say for example, like Britishers, they did not come here to establish rule of law or for the good of people. They just simply wanted to fleece this country. Now, in democratic forces, we need to have people who are there to fight, there to for the rights of the people and how to give what people need. And for that, this process allows everyone to participate. But unfortunately, the people, like as you said, that everyone, they are too fractured, too fragmented. And therefore, ultimately, then two parties, it's like what has happened in USA or UK, that also has gone towards a single party. We are a multi-party system. In fact, individuals can also participate in the process as a individual also. So this process allows, but practically it doesn't happen. Then again, the capitalism comes in the picture. These capital companies, or for that matter, capital forces support the campaigns and all that, and therefore you find what it is today, the kind of condition. And therefore, again, we need to go back to cleanse the system of democratic processes by understanding that it is not in good health.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Anybody, or we should call it a day?
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, sir. This is Anjani, law student from NLU Visakhapatnam. Firstly, thanks a lot for this lecture, sir. It's really enlightening. I'd like to highlight as to the Maharashtra government's, there was a mobocracy versus democracy, as we all know about what has happened in the Maharashtrian government. So with respect to the same, I have a question. Should elected representatives be allowed to change their party allegiance between the elections? And how democratic is it to do?
See, democracy is as strong or as porous as its laws allow it. Now, laws allow it. we need to have laws, very robust laws. And if you think about the earlier years when the IRM, GARAM famous term was coined first time, that people were crossing party from one party to another party, and then this law of anti-defection came in. But then pre-alliance and post-alliance, it doesn't find any mention in the law. Since you are a law student, it doesn't have any meaning. In fact, anybody can come together and anybody can go. Our Indian polity doesn't have any, this is my philosophy, and you have to register that philosophy, and then you can go only with that philosophy, other philosophy, that is also not there. On this background, then, legally, there is no bar from joining anybody and everybody. But I must say, the people or the parties, their political philosophy could be anything but their economic philosophy. People should be asking, what is your economic philosophy and why we should vote you? And then, of course, if these similar people, parties having similar economic philosophies can come together, that can happen in future. But we need to have some kind of reforms, and that's what exactly my point is there today, that we need to review the democratic system. Now, you mentioned about Maharashtra. The law allows it. If law allows it, nobody can take any objection, because high moral ground that they were separate and all that. But it's simply that nobody can go to the court and take a stay that, okay, they have different philosophies and earlier they were opposite, I think. But law doesn't preclude them from coming together. So this is exactly the thing I'm saying, that young generation like you should think. In fact, you should be thinker. And therefore, I initially mentioned that I don't want to give information. I want to trigger thinking in you. Start thinking that how to stop this such type of uneasy alliances, and alliances based on different things rather than the economic well-being of the people. So that's a good thought. But then you people should devise something as a, like statutory provisions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So one question from YouTube. Aditya Joy Fukan, he asked, sir, is now India moving towards superpower?
That is not the topic of today, but let me react to it. Now, what is economic superpower? See, or what superpower, what we are talking, probably is referring to economic superpower. But for his information, economic superpower, India was economic superpower before 1750, when world was different. I think our GDP that time was 288 crores, just that, but it was very large. So we were two economic superpower of the planet, China and of course India, and we are controlling maximum of world GDP that time. But then three industrial revolution happened, and then we have come down to such a level that our GDP is just 2.8 trillion, as against USA GDP being 21 trillion. So it's a lot of difference. Now, to become economic superpower, does it mean that we take over USA and make, instead of 21 trillion, 22 trillion, and then we become super economic power? No, not even that also. Even after we become, we take over, we surpass the American economy of $21 trillion and we become 22. No. See, the question is that how much everybody is getting. USA, their economy is $21 trillion and per capita income is about $62,000. As against our per capita income is about $2,300, something odd. So unless and until we surpass as a population their economy size, and for that to come to the level of $62,000 per capita income of Indians, then our economy has to be of the size of $84 trillion. Then we become economic superpower. But why do we want to become economic superpower? We want the equality of incomes. Basically, first, we should be asking for equality of income. Democracy is for equality of income. And not that now tomorrow if we become, say, for example, like $20 trillion, and if it is in the few hands, what is the use of it? If majority people are stressed economically and few people are sitting on a large wealth, it's of no use. So democracy expects that there is equality of income. And rather than saying that economic superpower, the people of this country, people of the planet should be saying that there should not be inequality of income. So that should be the question. Yes, yes, please. Can you hear me? Is that all right?
Yes, sir. Yes. Sir. Yeah, yeah.
Rituraj, can you hear me? Are there any more questions, or I think that's all now?
Sir, can I ask one more question? Hello,
Please,
sir.
please, please.
So myself, Runal Mulla again. Sir, as a result of democracy, we have got the nota power in elections. So at this stage, we can see in last elections in Maharashtra, we saw that many people choose nota option, right? So in future, it will go. I think whatever going on, or people are being more aware of their voting power. So they are selecting nota power. So if number goes on in higher strength, then what you think, sir? What should be the provision to consider those nota, or it will go again in like unconsidered?
That's a good question, but see, it is like a process. Nota, personally, I don't. I'm not in favor of nota. It's like wasting your vote. See, if you want to make some dent into your life, you need to elect somebody, and not that I don't want to elect anyone. But unfortunately, our political system is not that way. Like there are some people that some time you feel that I don't want to elect anyone. And if this increases and it goes more than like say 50%, then the election commission would definitely think, government will definitely think that what to do with the number of votes going being more than the votes secured by the largest candidate. So they will have to think. But until then, I think it's like wastage of votes. Nota should not be, should not be the only option. What should be the option? Option should be like people should tell okay, what exactly you are going to do, and then if they tell you through their manifesto as a structured thing, we are going to do this, then probably people should question that and then come forward, and then that should be binding rather than nota being binding or not something nota. There has to be a moment that they said so many things before election. These are the 10 things, and how to get the 10 things done post election. That should be the way. Nota is a very small thing.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I just want to ask one question.
Yes, please. Please,
Due to liberalization and globalization, we can say that it is the third kind of colonization.
Can you identify yourself?
Hello?
Can
Hello,
you
sir.
please
I'm Professor Gopakumar, sir, from Divai Party Law College.
Okay.
Sir, due to this globalization and liberalization, it's a what we can say that a indirect way of colonization. Even some.
You're not very audible. Can you be little, because I can't hear you properly.
Hello, can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me?
And be slow, because audio being very.
Yeah. So my question is that due to liberalization and globalization, it is an indirect way of what we can call colonization. Again.
Colonization.
Colonization. Colony. They are making colonies.
They are making
indirect colonies indirectly.
Colony.
No, so I can't. You use the audio properly.
Yeah, maybe some network problem may be there, sir.
Sir, you can write your questions there.
Yeah. Okay.
Comment box.
And then somebody can read it out to me, please.
Yes.
Anybody else? It's 1 hour now, or you want to conclude the session now, Rituraj? Rituraj, you want to conclude the session?
If anybody have any questions, please ask your question.
I think there are no questions, so can we end the session? I don't think there are any questions now.
Maybe Gopasa is writing his questions, so please wait for 2 minutes.
Okay, okay, I can wait.
Rutraj, I'll send it later. We can conclude it. I'll send it later.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
And that's it?
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for your words, for joining us, and thanks to all our viewers who join us.
And get me the
Thanks.
feedback also, like, and if there are any issue, questions, you can always ask, raise the queries also. Thank you very much, and I
Sir,
hope.
do you have,
I'll
do
make
you
it-
have your email ID or something so that we can contact for future?
My email ID is probably here. Can you see my email ID?
No, sir. It's
It's there on the screen. zmahesh@hotmail.com.
all right, sir. Got it, sir.
Yeah. Okay. See you then. Take care. Be at home.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.